So I have a little bit of a bio I'm going to read. I'm actually going to jump to the bottom of this bio before and then I'll double back to the top of what he's doing currently, because I think this is really interesting. Prior to starting up, and he's got an incredible litany of things that he's done in his startup and entrepreneurial realm. But prior to the startup, he was a professional sailor, and he competed in 2 America's Cups, and he won one of them. I mean, come on, just that alone is something to show up and hear about. So that's pretty neat. I'm excited to hear about that a little bit if he has some time. He's married to Teresa, a wonderful and creative woman. He's the father of Ray, a smart, caring, and active daughter. And when he's not working, he likes to run and bike long distances and swim at half the pace that he did in college. So TA is an entrepreneur. He's living in Seattle, Washington. He's currently a managing director for Pioneer Square Labs. I don't know how they beat Starbucks to the domain psl.com, but they did. So it's a pretty awesome venture that they're participating in and bringing forward. They are a venture studio and venture capital fund. They partner with entrepreneurs to turn ideas into venture scale companies. Previously, he was a founder and CEO of Synosys, which was acquired by Google. He's currently the founder of Rival IQ, which is in the PSL domain. He's a founder and CEO, previously a founder and CEO of Gist.com, as well as Jump to Go. I'm not even halfway done here, guys, so give me a minute. He's on the board of Remarkably, which is a PSL company, Sentinel Healthcare, another PSL company, and Guidient Financial. He's on the board of Volt Athletics. He's an active advisor to startup companies, including Creative Live, the Zero Card, and Inkwell Media. He was a VP of product strategy at BlackBerry, where he was focused on BlackBerry Messenger. If you guys remember that was leading technology back in the day when before the screens became so entrenched into our lives, or I guess as they were. Social applications for BlackBerry, such as Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Foursquare, and the native contacts apps after BlackBerry bought his last company, Gist. Hope I'm pronouncing that right, TA. He also spent 4 years at Microsoft in various roles on Exchange and mobile service delivery platforms. He likes B2B and mobile stuff. All right, last paragraph. He's an active angel investor for Creative Live, Skilljar, Innovative, I'm butchering that one, as well as Founders Co-op and SKB. He plans to do more angel investments in marketing tools, education, in quantified health, and he's bringing data to bear more to improve healthcare. So you can connect with him there. He likes sharing his experiences and ideas, so he spends a lot of time at Techstars as an active mentor, as well as Burek Center for Entrepreneurship at the University of Washington. And he was previously on the board of Lake Washington Girls Middle School. He learned by mentoring, coaching, and teaching. And without further ado, T.A. McCann.
Thank you all. Can you hear me okay? Okay, I'll be looking at you, Nick, because I can't see anybody else. And this is like strangely, weirdly like 1984, like being the head presenting in the room. So I'm very sorry I can't be there to see you all. But as Nick said, I did test positive for COVID on Monday, and it would have been really bad if I knew I was positive walking around the room talking to everybody face to face. So I am back here in Seattle, and about 3 days into it, and so far it's felt like kind of a bad flu, but I've been working straight through it. So I'll do it probably about a 25 to 30 minute long presentation, and then we'll have time for questions, and we can keep those questions narrow in the space of investing, or we can make them broad in the space of entrepreneurship and starting companies and things like that. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about angel investing. I'm going to focus mostly on making the decision as an individual to be an investor. I'll spend more time thinking about that and a little bit about evaluating deals themselves. But first step is, how am I going to be an investor myself? As Nick sort of brought a little bit of my background, I'm a Hoosier at heart. I'm actually from Michigan City, Indiana, way up north, not too far from you. And went to Purdue, mechanical engineer from Purdue, and then got out of college and started building some complicated robotic systems. And then, as Nick said, I quit to become a professional sailor and did that for about 8 years. And then as the internet was happening, I wanted to finish my sailing career and get back into technology. So it was kind of like 1995, started one company, Started my second company, which failed through the dot-com crash, ended up at Microsoft, spent about 3 years there understanding what, real software looks like and global scale looks like. Then left to start a couple of other companies, of which one was just along the way, that was acquired by BlackBerry. After I sold Gist, then we started Rival IQ. Then after that, I started actually for Paul Allen, I started a studio or an incubator called Vulcan Labs, and worked on Vulcan Labs for about 5 years or 3 years. And then that turned into a couple of companies as well. Ultimately then started Synosis, which was acquired by Google. And since the writing of that bio, like lots of the companies that you listed there have been acquired. So Rival IQ was acquired by NetBase about 3 months ago. So now 3 exits out of the 5-time kind of founder. And then Creative Live was acquired, Inkwell was acquired. So those companies are getting, acquired along the way. So been, kind of through the process of starting and building and selling companies a number of times. After we sold Gist, that was the place when I now had enough capital to start thinking about angel investing. So that was in 2011. I started investing in 2012 and have been doing it sort of ever since. So I've got about 10 years worth of experience kind of under my belt as a particular active angel investor. But I'm actually much more of a builder than an investor. I like the process of coming up with ideas, turning them into companies and building. That said, now I spend my time at Pioneer Square Labs. So as Nick mentioned, PSL is 2 parts of our business. We are a startup studio where we come up with ideas and turn them into companies. And we are a $100 million venture capital fund. So we invest in the companies we start. We also invest in companies that are based here in the Pacific Northwest, early stage technology companies. And through PSL, we've started 32 companies over 6 years, and we've invested in about 10 more. So we have lots of experience and obviously looked at many hundreds of ideas and many hundreds of companies to get to those ultimate investments. So all that said, we still have some big successes and plenty of failures. So there's still a tremendous amount of learning that I'm personally doing and that we're doing at PSL and that we're doing in our compatriots of other people who are running venture studios. We're very fortunate. I'm very fortunate. If you have not followed Brad Feld from the Foundry Group yet, I highly encourage you to do so. So Brad is both a personal friend. He was a lead investor in Gist way back in 2009. He's the lead investor in Pioneer Square Labs. He's also one of the major investors in High Alpha, which is a studio based in Indianapolis. And Brad is both an incredible human, but also an incredible investor. And many of the points that I'll make later on are advice that Brad gave to me when I started angel investing based on the collective, success of Gist. So written a number of books, I think 6 or 7 books about startup communities. He's a co-founder of Techstars, which is another form of scaling entrepreneurship. So Brad has seen, many thousands of deals and done many, many successful investments. So you can continue to learn a lot from Brad. He speaks a lot, he writes a lot, blogs a lot, just an incredible human as a whole. I'm also very fortunate to be partnered with Jeff Entris, who's actually a Notre Dame grad. He's one of my partners at Pioneer Square Labs, and he's the most active angel investor in Seattle. So he has done over 275 companies, probably 1,100 to 1,200 deals as an angel investor, and been doing it for, 15 or 18 years. So some of the points I'll make later are also borrowed from Jeff, and he's also a great resource for you should you want to get active, both in general angel investing, but more specifically if you're interested in Seattle angel investing. So first point I want to make as an investor is like, why are you doing this? And the point of trying to do angel investing to make money is probably you're not your best bet. The reason that you should probably be angel investing is one of these other sort of topics. So number one is personal interest. What are you just geeky about? What do you want to spend your time thinking about? Being around other entrepreneurs who care about this particular topic area. So pick a personal area of interest in learning that oftentimes aligns toward your future world vision. So when you think about the world of education going forward, or you think about the world of health going forward, or you think about the world of business software going forward, or automation, or robotics, or gene therapy, it doesn't matter. Pick an area where A, you're interested intellectually, and B, you think that the world will be a lot better if there's a bunch of startups who create that future world vision. Another motivation may be just being more connected. Oftentimes as an entrepreneur or somebody who's, you want to create more connections with more people, and being involved in early stage investments allows you to be more networked with entrepreneurs for sure, the people who work for those companies, but also the investors in your local geography or your thematic geography. When I say thematic, it could be all the different investors who care about, the future of biology. Sometimes people are also interested in building a local ecosystem or a specific kind of ecosystem. This could be female founders, for example. It could be underrepresented founders, or it could be a geographic area like Seattle or South Bend or Elkhart or Indianapolis or wherever. So as you think about building a startup ecosystem, it takes capital. It takes reasons why people want to stay there, to build companies there. And that may be a motivation for you as an individual angel investor. I know it's an important part for me, which is one of the reasons that in general, I only invest in Seattle. So I like lots of other companies, but I'm interested in building this Seattle ecosystem, which is where I live and work. And so I constrain most of my investments into that category. And if you're lucky, you'll make money. More often than not, you won't. So if you're lucky, make money, but realistically, it's one of those other 4 reasons why you should be motivated to go do this. And be careful, for many of us who have been successful enough to be able to angel invest, we think this is just a fun way for us to get involved and give advice. Most entrepreneurs don't really need our advice or want our advice. So be careful if all you're doing is becoming an angel investor because you want to create an opportunity for you to give lots of advice. Be very careful about that. That said, the best entrepreneurs will ask for that advice if you're thoughtful about when and how to give it. So first is start with the why, your own motivation. Second, my advice is to create your own investing themes. So this is a continuation of the why, but if you think I am only going to do N number of investments, then narrowing into probably 2 or 3 themes is important. So my primary theme is quantified health. I believe there are going to be tremendous innovations around health and healthcare that are going to be some combination of data, machine learning, and mobile software. And those will be applied to a variety of different categories that are on one end sickness, in the middle wellness, and on the other end human performance. And why do I believe that? And what am I looking for? And how am I developing my thesis? And who am I following on Twitter? And what am I reading? And what am I writing? And what future world do I believe is important? That's an investing theme for me. Investing themes do 2 things for you as an angel investor. Number 1 is they help you filter. So you'll have all kinds of inbound ideas, and you really need a good way to filter a lot of them out very quickly. So if you say, you know what, I'm only interested in quantified health, education, and MarTech software, all those other things filtered out, or at least you have the opportunity to filter them out. Or if you're saying, I'm only interested in quantified health in Seattle, okay, that is a filtering mechanism for you when you're dealing with the inbound. The other point about investing themes is that it allows you to be much smarter about your questions. It allows you to be much more informed about the competitors. It allows you to be much more informed about whatever challenges are going to be in any particular theme that you have. And as you develop this theme, you're going to go from being, I'll say, interested to educated. And in a perfect world, you actually become somewhat of a thought leader. Like, you know enough about this space to be disproportionately valuable to an entrepreneur who's coming to you with an idea. So develop your themes, and then also reverse engineer for who are the other investors who care about those themes. Because ultimately you're going to have to find lots of other capital to invest alongside you, or you're going to invest behind. And so find the other investors who care about your thing. And this is a little bit self-fulfilling in the sense is when you find other investors, some of them or many of them will be writing about or tweeting about these types of things, the companies they're investing in, and you'll start to develop your own pattern recognition for all the deals that you didn't get in. but you'll also start to develop for the people who are the more experienced investors in a particular category. What are they seeing? Why did they choose this company versus that company? And who else is investing in those particular companies? So it'll start to build your network as well. Next, you need to figure out how much money you can lose before you get divorced. And the thought process of this is, in my opinion, is you should think, how many investments can I do? How can I get to 20 investments and assume I'm going to lose all the money? And it will take a little while for you to do that. And you'll have some success and some failure, or you'll have all failure. But really in your mind and within your family, whoever that is, whoever cares about the money that you may have, is think about how much can you lose. And when you go back up to the point about why are you doing this, if you're saying, listen, I'm willing to invest 250K or 500K, and I'm willing to lose all of that money because it's intellectually curious for me. It's like, I'm going to go pay for education. I'm going to go spend time with people who are so smart and so excited about this particular space that even if I lose all the money, I will know a lot of people, and it'll be a fun next 3 or 5 years getting very educated and pick your category. But get comfortable with that number. Then when things fail, you don't have a lot of heartburn about it. And when things succeed, great. In my opinion, most good angel investors take the money that is in this pool and just make it evergreen. So when you have success, if you have success, you just recycle it into doing more and doing more and doing more. So this is sort of a pot of money that is educational, that is intellectually curious. And instead of buying a $500,000 boat, you're going to buy this thing. And you're going to buy this because it's going to give you joy. It's going to give you intellectual curiosity. It's going to give you connections. And you may be investing in a particular community or theme that you care about, a la, again, the female founders or investing in Elkhart. Next point would be pace yourself. Most angel investors, once you've sort of allocated, let's call it 500K for argument's sake, everybody gets very excited. Oh, great, I'm going to be an angel investor now, and I'm going to start looking at deals, and I'm going to start writing checks. And you're inexperienced at that point in time. You have not developed any level of heuristic of decision making. You don't really have a network yet, and you start deploying capital too quickly. My advice is that you deploy capital in a little bit of what this looks like. So it actually feels slow and painful in years 1 and 2, while you're seeing lots of deals and you're saying lots of no, because you're all excited about it. But what happens is you'll develop your pattern recognition by the end of probably about 30 to 50, pitches that you've seen, maybe more. You'll start to feel good about, okay, I made this first investment, and I made this first investment with some amazing other people who are way more experienced than me. So you're paying a little bit for the experience, and you're going slow at the beginning so that you can move a little bit faster later on. The second point about pacing yourself is most investors forget that they should be doing follow-on investment. So in the companies that are working really well, you want to put more money in. Well, you won't know if they're working really well for a couple of years out. So like you invest when at the earliest stage, and then it'll take another 2 years, and then they'll go raise money. Another 2 years, they'll go raise money. You want to put more money into those companies. So when you're thinking about that 500K, like some of it needs to be for follow-on. The second point is that some of those companies will be very good companies that for whatever reason struggle to raise money. And that's what I would call saves. So you may need to put more money into the companies that are about to die, but you want to see sustain. So that's money that's out of the same pool that's called saves. And that'll also happen kind of year 2, year 3, year 4, something like that. Another strategy that I like to employ, and I do myself, is I like to invest in early stage managers, so small funds, and I like to see what they're investing in, and sometimes I follow on. And one could say that's a very good strategy for year 1 or year 2 is like, listen, I just invested in 2 funds. I really like the managers. They like the themes that I care about. I put 50K in there or 25K in there. And I watched as deals came along. And when they wanted to do a deal, I was open to writing another 25K check. So I'm learning from another manager's expertise, and I'm learning from them that I'm also starting to create a group of people around me. So this is where you'd say, okay, I've got fund investments, and these are seed stage, early stage investment funds, and I've got my direct, I got my follow on, and I got my saves. You total all that up over 5 years, it might be 500K if you're writing 25K checks. And if all of a sudden all of your own individual investments fail, then at least you probably are going to have some successes out of the funds, because they will have spread your investments even that much further. So go slow, pace yourself, find your way to be investing alongside other people. And in the early days, I would be very, very focused on following along other really, really smart investors and understanding why they chose yes for this particular investment. At the end of the day, this is all about people. It's all about the people who are leading these companies. And you, as an angel investor, have to develop your own means of CEO assessment. We all have our own experiences. We all have our own things we think are important. And trying to develop in some form of less than 30 minutes, like, this is a CEO that I want to bet on, or this is a CEO I don't want to bet on. And most angel investors tend to index too hard on the business and not enough on the people, because the business could change a lot, but the people aren't going to change. So Fahim is one of my favorite early stage CEOs. He and his brother started a company called Educative. They're from Pakistan, and they teach people how to code. It's an incredible company. It's grown very, very well. And it's just such a good example of the kind of people that I at least want to invest in. And I hope that they turn out to be great investments. But even if they don't, the experience I've had with Fahim over the last 4.5 years, it's just been so incredible, both because I care about the educational theme, but also I care about investing in sort of diverse founders. And I care about somebody who's building companies in Seattle. So Fahim is a great example for me. A couple of the things that I sort of work on and when I assess CEOs, it's a lot about, can they tell a story about their company, themselves, where they came from? Do they have self-awareness about their own strengths and weaknesses? Can they tell me about who they've attracted on their team and how and why? And I oftentimes try to talk to one of their team members, because I'm also looking for the team member to have their own self-awareness and to be able to communicate about the strengths and weaknesses of the CEO. And then oftentimes I do it even publicly, so when we might be having a beer after work, and like, okay, so tell me, like, what do you think are the strengths and most importantly, the weaknesses of Fahim as a leader? Doing that publicly as a group, all of a sudden to see this dynamic between the founding team is really quite powerful. I'm also an engineer, and so I like to think about founders and leaders who think not only about innovation on product, but innovation on process. How are they building the company? What are they doing uniquely to create advantage for the company independent of the product itself? So this could be recruiting, it could be fundraising, it could be go-to-market, it could be engineering. The people who I've found to be most successful are innovating on both those levels, product and process. And ultimately, the process innovation means that they can just get done more with less money, or they can get done, more for the same amount of money, but faster than their competitor with the same idea down the street. And the last but not least, this is something that I find important. Jeff finds very important. Brad finds very important. You may not, but likability and trust. Like, do you just want to hang out with this person? I mean, these startups take a long time, and 3, 4, 5, 10 years. And hopefully you're going to spend a lot of time with these entrepreneurs. You're going to be helpful to them. They're going to want your help. You're going to have to spend time when it's going well, when it's scaling really quickly and they need help, and when it's going poorly and they need help. So you may as well pick people that you like, that you trust, and that you want to spend time with, because that's part of the motivation, is to say, I want to spend time with young, enthusiastic, entrepreneurial people doing cool things. I may as well like them and trust them. And so likability and trust scores high for me along my decision making for CEOs and their early teams. Okay, building credibility, connections, and community. As an angel investor, like, there's plenty of money to go around. So the better the company, the more options they have. So when you're thinking about being an angel investor, you got to think about, like, what community am I going to build? What community am I going to be part of? How am I going to build credibility in that community? These are three examples of young entrepreneurs or young investors who have chosen to build content, community, and connections, and are now very, very forward in seeing deal flow. So on the top, upper left-hand side is Packy McCormick, does an incredible newsletter called Not Boring. If you haven't read it, I highly encourage it. It's long, very long form. And Packy started writing this, and now Packy is probably one of the most sought after investors as an, I'll say, a super angel, meaning he's probably writing 100K checks now. He started to build a fund around him. But content is an important part of this, because content is a perspective, and content oftentimes gives you reach. And because you have reach, you can help an entrepreneur more. The middle example is my partner is the Acquired podcast, which I also highly recommend. And on the left of that, or my left, is Ben Gilbert. He's one of my partners at PSL, and his partner, David. This podcast is amazing and great, and the community that they've built around it is incredible. And that community means that they get lots of inbound deal flow and lots of inbound information, but also once they make an investment, they can push it back out to that channel. So distribution becomes a value for an entrepreneur, hence wanting somebody like Ben and David or Packy to be involved in their company. On the far right is Shane Mack. Shane Mack's based in Nashville. Shane Mack used to work for me at Gist. And now he's a very successful entrepreneur, just raised a $20 million seed round led by A16Z Crypto, and one of the most incredible lists of angel investors I've ever seen. I'm fortunate to be part of that. But when you look at what Shane has been able to do, both with his own brand, he has a rolling fund called Logos, which you can check out online. And he is also running this company called XMTP, which is a messaging protocol for the blockchain. But each one of these different people are good examples of people who had a thematic area of focus. They created content and community around said area of focus, and now have become a sought after angel investor in any one of these rounds. And I would say that all three of these guys can get into almost any deal that they want to. And the most competitive deals are the ones you want to be in. And you can't just get in with money. That doesn't matter. Like, what matters is some form of extra added value. And in these three cases, it's about content and community that they've created around themselves. So as you may think about yourself as an angel investor, you say like, okay, what do I care about? What community am I going to build? What community am I going to participate in so that I can get into the best deals out there? Okay, this is the way most rounds come together. So for everybody who may be experienced entrepreneurs or even investors out there, most good seed rounds look something like this. They have a lead investor who are setting the terms. They have follow-on investors who are smaller check sizes, and they have angels like the rest of us who are the smallest check sizes. Most inexperienced entrepreneurs spend their time building the round from the bottom up. They talk to angels, and then they like slowly collect a bunch of 10 or 25K checks. And then then they're like, oh, now I'm at 250 and now I'm going to go to 400. And the more experienced founder will build it from the top down. So they go find the lead sets the terms. And if this is selfish lead, there's no room for any angels. They push them all out. If it's an open sort of dialogue, then there'll be a lead. There could be somebody who follows that lead, and then there might be some room for some angels. So depending on where you meet the entrepreneur in their journey, let's say you meet them very early and you're one of the first people they've talked to. Why? Because they heard your name around, or you're an active angel investor. And if you're going to do a 25K check into that company, my advice is that you say, hey, I'm really interested in what you're doing. If I were to invest, I'd do 25K. Let's go help you find the lead investor. And once that lead is in place, then you can count me in for 25K. And if you do that well, for every given idea, you're helping find companies for the leads. You're sourcing them for the VCs or the bigger checks. And because you brought the lead, you've earned yourself at least 1 point of probably getting in. And if you have built trust and value with that entrepreneur along the way, you've earned your second self a point of trying to get into that round. And you should assume that the best deals, like you're barely going to make it in. You're going to have to beg to get in because there's going to be so much demand to get into that round that they're not going to want you. And somebody else is going to be, in quotes, better than you. So if you're competing against Packy or Ben Gilbert or Shane Mack to get that 125K slot in the best deals, you better think, how am I that much value? So that's your own clear value to the founder. In my particular case, I might say, I'm a 5-time founder. I can really help you be a much better CEO. I'm a very good product manager. I can help you run a good engineering team and a good process there. I've thought a lot about distribution in this particular category, and here's how I can help you on distribution / acquiring customers. It doesn't have to be 20 things, but 2 or 3 things which you individually as an angel investor, you think are particularly good at that can be very, very helpful to most founders. And that will also be communicated back into the other investors. And know your place in the process. So if you're early, then help find the lead. If you're late, then you've got to figure out how to get into the round, and you've got to figure out what your specific value is, and you have to help the entrepreneur advocate on your behalf. Okay, a few more random questions or random points, and then I can wrap it up and open for questions. So most angel investors, especially when you start off, you ask way too many questions that relative to your check size. So if you're writing a small check, you've only earned yourself a small amount of time to ask questions. So if you have a small check, less is less. Make your decision quickly, follow someone else's diligence, and you'll be wrong sometimes, but you have to think like, I'm a small check. I make very fast decisions. I don't ask a ton of questions. And these are the 2 or 3 things that are most important to me. So less is less, small is fast. And you have to get that way, because otherwise the other bigger investors are like, oh my God, that person is such a pain. Like they ask all these questions and they're really slow and it's a 25K check. No, like 25K check, you can usually make the decision in a half an hour to an hour, especially if there's other leads, if there are other good investors around the table, and if you've developed some level of heuristic over your first couple of years of investing. As I said before, this is a very standard line. I'd like to do 25K in your thing. Let me call me when you have the lead in place, or let's go find that lead. Who's the best lead that you can think of for this particular idea? And let me make some calls on your behalf. And because if I say I'm going to put my money in, and I call Nick and say, I would like you to put your money in, I think this is a great entrepreneur, you will find the lead investors and they will let you in, and they will also start to bring you into their deals because you add unique and discrete value to the CEOs. Wait to be asked for advice versus just automatically giving it. And a good CEO will create the opportunities for you to give advice. And a good CEO, and this is a coachable opportunity, a good CEO will also give you specific tasks to do. And you should ask for those specific tasks. And in most cases, they're easy for you. So they're like, you know what? I'm really struggling with an introduction to the HR department at Costco. I'm like, oh, I can do that. That's easy. Oh, I'm really struggling with, how can I hire a CTO, and what are the right questions to ask a CTO? I'm like, oh, I can do that. I'm pretty good at that one. Or you can say like, I'm not very good at that one. There's hopefully someone else in our investor base who can help you. So if you give 2 or 3 things that you can be helpful about, and you encourage trust from that entrepreneur to ask you about them, then you can ask for advice, just not offer it, especially in areas where you don't have a tremendous amount of experience. Then go back to adding real value. And the real value for most early stage startups is find customers. And when you've got a little extra time, go find them some more customers. Then you can find them some money, and every now and again, you will find them a potential team member. Most other advice is not that valuable, even though we like to give it. So action is way more valuable than advice. And then this is a long game. As I was talking to Jeff the other day, he said, I started writing checks, and I think I was writing checks for 7 years before I had my first exit. That's a long time. Like that's a lot of persistence, and it's a lot of developing pattern recognition. And it's a lot of, okay, I assume that all those checks I wrote for the first 6 years, they could easily be zero, because even if they've been marked up a lot, they could still not materialize. In my case, I think I had my first exit over like about 3 years in. And it was modest, it's kind of a 3 or 4 extra turn. I'm like, oh, cool. I get 3 more chances now. Right. And I made 3 more investments. And then some of the funds started to pay off and I could make more investments. So the pot of money has now gotten bigger. I haven't taken any of it out. I've been able to do more investments, but it's a long game. And if you go back to your motivations of why, building an ecosystem, investing in these kinds of entrepreneurs, seeing a future vision, that vision takes a long time to play out as well. And in many ways, even what I started 10 years ago is still only 20% of where I'd hope it would be 10 years from now. So I'm going to continue to invest in this quantified health, continue to invest in the future of education. And those are themes that I care about for the long term. And they may be 10, 20, 30 years in the future. And it may take a long time for those to play out. So please connect with me online. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you have questions, send me email. If you want to invest in early stage companies in Seattle, I think you could do a lot worse than knowing the PSL crew and what kinds of things we're creating in the studio, but also the kinds of things that we are investing in our fund. And Seattle, as you probably know, is an incredibly vibrant startup ecosystem with, hundreds of companies being created all the time. And so part of building your own pattern recognition is getting in line where you can learn and watch alongside a lot of other people. So please reach out if I can be helpful.